Thank you so much, House of Speakeasy. Thank you so much for having me and having all of us, my wonderful colleagues. It's always wonderful, really extraordinary to listen to all. Just a note, anytime I get super despairing, and these days there's a lot of despairing, there's always a certain group of writers I turn to, and one without fail that always absolutely helps me is Mary Gate. Yo, Mary, Mary Gateskill. So I'm always just very happy to be with her. And of course, the New Yorker. I wouldn't have a fucking career if it wasn't for New Yorker. So always endless gratitude. And to all of you who are here, thank you so much. And to everyone who's listening to this or watching this on live stream, if it wasn't for you readers, I don't think any of us would have much of anything. So really appreciate it. Anyway, so some years ago, right, I was invited to have dinner with the president of the Dominican Republic, and another writer, but a writer of monumental hemispheric importance. One of those writers who is going to win a Nobel Prize. Yeah, a writer who had been important and significant since before I was alive, right? One of these third world, back then that's what we called them, right? Just a kind of a foundational figure. And it was a strange invitation. One, I was never cool with any Dominican politician. Before I was a writer, I was an activist, and a big part of my activism was criticizing a lot of the policies and politics of Dominican political elites. And specifically, this president who was doing the invitation and his party. And so it was kind of a thing where I was like a little bit ambivalent, but I was very curious. Two things. First of all, I was curious to go see the Palacio Nacional where the dinner was going to be held. It's like the White House for the Dominican Republic. Yeah. Anybody see Godfather 2? The scene that's supposed to be Havana, right? Where Michael Corleone is like, I know it was you, Fredo. That scene, that's the Palacio Nacional. So you've seen it. Very beautiful, very straight, stately. And plus, I wanted to meet this writer. Wasn't my politics, wasn't my kind of writer, but this is someone whose books I had seen in all my classes. I'd read a bunch. You get curious, right? And I was curious as hell. So I go to Dominican Republic, go to dinner, Palacio Nacional. Very, very formal, very, very stately. Lighting was weird. They had it pitched like this, beyond crepuscular, But it was swell. I walk in, there's the writer, kind of regal, lion-esque, older, but still very strong, very hale, complete patrician, beautiful, spoke beautifully, un hablar excelente, un discurso buenísimo, and great suit, tailored, European, watch, the whole thing. And I'm like, kind of a Mario Vargas Llosa type, right? That's what we'll call him, right? The writer has very strong connections to the Dominican Republic. They're not Dominican, but very strong connections to the Dominican Republic. So I'm like, Mr. Not Mario Vargas Llosa, I have read many of your books, right? And he's like, but not all. And I'm like, this is where we're going. This is how it's gonna be, right? Whatever. Fuck it. He earned the right to dunk on my ass, so let's go. Sit down, dinner. Can't remember anything they served, but I'm nervous as hell. I don't know. Maybe some of you all chill with hanging with the president. I wasn't. And this writer, it was also very intimidating, but it was awkward. Me and the president clearly, even though it was his house, I'm not sure we knew what the hell to do or how to act. Maybe I'm just projecting. I knew I didn't know how to do act, but the writer was cool. He was just eating, comfortable, relaxed, telling tales about his connection to Dominican Republic. And I'm like, I don't got much to say. I just have this anecdote about Godfather 2 that I'm like, oh, maybe I'll pop this shit out, you know? Corny. Very corny. So, but I don't know, it was like the second plate or whatever. The writer gets this smile on its face. And he looks up at the president and he says, Mr. President, right? I want to ask you a question about the Palacio Nacional. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I got my little tale ready, you know? And the president's like, of course, of course. And he goes, so did you buy this place with narco money? With cocaine money? I'm like, I can't tell you how slapped we all looked. Well, there was only two of us, right? But the servers as well. We were all like, oh, wow, this is wild. And the president is like, what the? No, claro que no. This is like a patrimonio nacional. It was built in 1948 by Trujillo, the dictator. And the writer is like, goes back to eating. Telling more tales, Dominican Republic connection. I'm watching him like, here we go. And a few minutes later, another plate. And he gets that smile on his face. And he looks up and he says, so, Mr. President, what did you buy with that narco money? Woof. Dinner ended very quickly. Very, very quickly. President, you could tell, isn't just, annoyed. He's actually angry. And what's wild is he wasn't just angry at the writer. He was angry at me. Like, association, maybe suddenly it all came out then. He maybe thought that I had conspired with the writer. But I could tell as we were like shaking and saying goodbye, I was like, this is gonna have consequences. I really felt that. And I was also just confused and a little sort of just, I don't know, maybe it's just the writer in me or maybe just who I am. I was just really confused and just puzzled and really wanted to understand why this had happened. There was something coming off of the writer as well that wasn't just dickishness. There was that. But there was something else there that was just important. I felt like there was a message or a puzzle I had to figure out. Never stopped thinking about it afterward. It wasn't just a little tale that I ate off of. I couldn't let it go. Anyway, a few years come and I get involved in some wildness with the Dominican government, the political elites. They decide to change the constitution, attempt to denationalize a large portion of the population of Haitian descent. Me and a bunch of other people logically and humanely criticize this. Except this time around, the government went at everyone who criticized them. I was in the United States, but everyone in Santo Domingo, United States, anywhere, they unleashed the troll army. I got hundreds of messages, death threats, people writing and calling my job, fire him. I was declared persona non grata in the Dominican Republic. I had like DK honors and awards taken from me. I remember I was going to go to Santo Domingo to visit home and somebody called and I picked up the phone and the person's like, when you land at the airport, we're going to shoot you in the face. I'm like, whoa, all right. And the entire time this is happening, I'm like, well, I'm in the United States. The people who are in Santo Domingo and the Dominican Republic are a lot less safe, less secure. But, this is terrifying. I'm scared shitless. And it's happening. It's really happening. But the entire time, completely irrationally, I'm kind of mad at that Mario Vargas Llosa cat. It makes no sense, right? But I'm thinking part of the reason this shit is so hot is because of him. Made no sense. But when you're scared, you come up with all sorts of magical thinking. And then, of course, I'm seeing his books everywhere. You know, and I can't get past what originally brought me to this, which I kept thinking and trying to figure this whole thing out. What was this about? What was going on? And why am I so curious about this? A few more years pass, this craziness blows over, supposedly, not really, and I am in the Mediterranean. I'm in Italy. And well, imagine Positano. For anybody been to Positano? Super beautiful, this wonderful light, these kind of medieval stones, the plazas, everybody out there drinking. And I'm like thinking I'm cute and I'm walking around enjoying it. And then suddenly I hear a voice cut through all the Italian. And this voice says something very offensive that could only possibly apply to me. Say something like, mire ese mamajuego. And as a Dominican, I'm like, oh shit, I feel interpolated. And I look up, and there is that Mario Vargas Llosa character, seated, ill-resplendent, having some fancy drink with a cravat. And he sees me, laughs, and he's like, come, Junot, come. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I've been waiting for this. Finally, revenge, you know? And I'm like, I don't know what I think I'm going to say to him, what I'm going to do, whatever. I sit down, he orders me a drink, starts telling me telling me a story about how Positano used to be so beautiful when he was young. Now it's overrun with tourists like you. Really? And I'm getting up. I'm like, here we go. And I noticed then that he's drinking and his hands are shaking. It suddenly dawns on me that since the last time I've seen him, he's aged quite a bit. In fact, he looks very, very frail. And I don't know if it was just a human bit of compassion, some sort of moment. It's maybe because my beloved grandfather, had died just a few years before. But my heart went out for him because it felt like he wasn't going to be around much longer. And whatever I thought I was going to fucking say to him, whatever I thought I was going to get engaged with, it just kind of just blew away. You know? And I'm like, try to pay for my drink. He's got to go somewhere. And he's like, no. And then he gets that smile on his face. And he goes, Junot, you remember that dinner with the president? Yes. Believe me, I really remember it. And he looks at me, still smiling. He goes, wasn't that a good night? That was a very good night. Now, I never saw him again. In fact, a few years later, he passes. And I won't say that I got or understood any of it or what happened afterward or the context, but the best theory I have of this, and part of it comes from that moment where I was like, I felt for this poor guy, even though, again, he's not my kind of writer, not my kind of politics. I felt for the cat, and the closest I came to understanding what was going on was thinking about him as a writer, thinking about what it meant to be someone like him who had written so many books for so many decades, and how you can't be a writer like a Mario Vargas Llosa type without having a part of you that's really rebellious, that's really free. Because to be a writer, any writer, you got to go against these societies, all of our societies that don't want us to be fucking writers. And if they want us to be writers, they don't want us to be the writer we want us to be. They want us to be the writer they want us to be. To be a writer like that person, you have to really be free. A part of you has to really resist, but not just be free. Freedom isn't just something you achieve. That kind of state isn't just a one and done. You have to keep that going. You have to keep that alive. And I began to realize that maybe part of the price of someone like him, staying someone like him, part of the price of staying free was that maybe he had to talk shit to the president. And maybe he had to, en Positano, call me a mamahuevo. Like, I wouldn't do it. I have different approach, but maybe that's what he needed. And it got me thinking about what does it mean for me, not only to be free, but to keep that freedom, to resist these things that keep us from not being the writer that we want us to be, that we want to be, and that make us buckle down and, kneel. And not long after Positano, I sat down and began to think about what freedom would look like for me and how I could make that happen. That was a good night, he said. And I have to tell you, I said nothing to him at the time. I was too kind of just taken back. But I kind of wish, as a writer, I could rewrite that, because what I would say to this writer, I would have responded, if I could respond, was, yeah, that was a good night. Thank you.